Hello and welcome to Heather and Hops. My name is Kat, or Catherine. I'm a knitter based in Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom, and this is where I have documented my knitting journey from my first project through to now, where we have cultivated a lovely sense of community and there's lots of knitting happening around me and connections, and I'm very grateful. I hope this finds you well. It is a rather gloomy Monday. It's starting to feel a little bit like autumn here. I don't know if it's because just being in the house it's a bit cooler or what, but I do have a hot beverage today. I hope you have one too, or a beverage of choice, whether that's water or, you know. I have a valerian root and chamomile, and then I have sprinkled on top some of my pumpkin spice blend. I do it most years. I quite like it on my porridge, which I have most days in the winter, and I also like it on my sort of matcha lattes or coffees. I sprinkle it on top rather than putting any syrups in my things. I don't know, I'm not really a syrup person. I don't really need any extra sugar in my life, so that's just what I do, and it's actually making me really want to drink it, but it's a bit too hot. It's gonna be one of those episodes, I think. Little Audrey now wants to go out, having just come back in. Yeah, I'm gonna try and be slow, or at least at a normal pace rather than rush through things. It has been a little while. I took an extra week off than expected. It's been a lot. I'll talk a bit more about things at the end. I know that most people are here for knitting, but I had a week away with Alex and some friends, and it was really wonderful. A really good bit of downtime, and then unfortunately when we got back, Alex was hit with COVID, so I've been at home. I've not been feeling well. I've been testing and it looks like it's just a flare-up, which is fine, but you know, still not particularly joyful. And then we have some more family health issues going on that are a bit more like a very not good. So all in all, it's just been quite intense. And then also the project that I've been working on, I've been really putting my time into it, so it's just not been a very good time for sharing. But hopefully today, I just really wanted to sit down and do something kind of that's a bit like a cuddle. Doing this, sharing with you, kind of does feel, even now, like I'm welcoming people into my living room. So if you're here, I hope you are feeling that too, and you're sat down somewhere nice, whether that's at home or out and about, and you have a project or something to, you know, else to keep you company. Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of step away, and I've been quite inspired lately to knit, more so than I have done for a little while, and I think that's partly comfort, partly not being able to do very much more than what I'm doing, and then partly the project that we will get to talk about very soon. It kind of is, it's not done, and it will be a eternally growing project, but it feels like there's a sense of coming togetherness that has given me a bit more brain space, and every time I pick up a ball of yarn or a skein of yarn lately, I've been just wanting to make with it, and I think partly that's the weather too. So yeah, lots of stuff. Yeah. I will mention that I'm wearing a garment that I haven't pulled out in a while. I might actually get too warm for this soon. I was quite cool until I ran around and put this setup together. I haven't sat where I normally sit. It means moving a sofa, and although I've put some makeup on, I'm really not feeling great, so hopefully that doesn't come across, you know, too bad. But I just felt like, slide the coffee table over, sit you next to me, and this is where I would be sitting if I was sat knitting today. So I just felt like that was the vibe. So it's a bit more, I don't know, cluttery, and it's not as, but hopefully comfortable. Yes, so I am wearing, this is the Blondie cardigan if I remember rightly, by Poison Girl, who also goes as Amy Appel, and this was knitted using beehive yarns. I can't remember the colourway. I believe it was Raven Red, and it's both on like a merino fingering base and a mohair base, and it really is a gorgeous red. It's a very blue red, and the colour has lasted really, really well. I cannot remember the modifications I made to this. I don't think there was many, if anything. I haven't attached buttons still. That's just, I don't know. It's not something I often do with cardigans, because if I'm gonna have something done up, generally I would wear a jumper. But maybe I should add buttons, because I do think this one goes up quite high, so even if I was to wear like this underneath it, it would, you know, fully cover. And I think that's usually my thing. I don't really like to see some layers. I just don't like to see. I have a really weird, I think we all have weird little things when it comes to clothes. Like, I don't really like when straps show unless it's like really intentional. You know, if I was to wear a tank top, I'd want anything underneath it to be hidden. I don't really understand, but yeah, I really like this pattern. Amy is really good with her description of how to do things, but also shaping and construction. This I don't remember particularly. This I knitted, I want to say nearly 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago maybe. I'm not sure, but I remember the construction being quite fun. And yeah, it's a nice one. And I think that's all I'm wearing today. I was going to put some slippers on as well, but I just couldn't be bothered. So, I have quite a bit of knitting to share. There's a few projects that, well, there's one project that I can share, but I'm not going to, just because I really have quite a bit here already. There's another that I'm not going to show because I can't yet, and there's another one that I'm not going to show because it's not been blocked and there's no point just yet, if that makes sense. And then I have lots of projects. I am quite excited about some of these cast-ons and the progress on a couple of them, and yeah. I will show you these because they're ridiculous. If you are here because you've been quite enjoying the Critical Role and Dungeons and Dragons content, if you've seen campaign 2, hopefully you will enjoy these. But I'll show you the one that I rolled, I would say maybe a 19 on. I think they're pretty good. But here is my Captain Tusktooth sock. I have been hoping to knit a sock or maybe a couple pairs for every character in campaign 2 of Critical Role. It's a lovely thing. Actors or voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons. It's an actual play show. It's really good fun. And I don't know, I think having spent so long with these characters, they've just been in me, and I had this idea, I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was about 5 months into playing Dungeons and Dragons I decided I wanted to do this, and it's finally happening. So I ended up purchasing some Drops Nord, I want to say, in colours that I felt matched the characters, because I wanted to be able to do this affordably, and I've bought colours for every single character that I didn't already have yarn for, if that made sense. So I think I already had the black because I obviously had the black, but I picked up a few extra colours to be able to do this. So this is all in Drops Nord. I'm not going to go through the colours because I think they would be fairly easy to find if you liked a particular colour, but also their numbers, it's not very interesting. But I'll do my best to put them on screen maybe. Have I done this? Editing me. But yeah, so basically I'm going to do most of these as my standard sock as the base, whether that's a slightly different heel or toe or different ribbing, that might change, but it will basically always be a 64 stitch count sock with most likely a wedge heel and toe, wedge toe and a short row heel. It's just looking quite nice for me at the moment and I've been enjoying them. And yeah, so this one is for Travis Willingham, who's a bit of a sportsman, which is why I did the little stripes at the top. I thought it'd be cute at the bottom too. And then his character is Ford, and Ford gets a tattoo. Well, does he? No. Jester tattoos Tusktooth basically and draws this little thing everywhere, and I don't know, ever since I saw it I kind of secretly wanted tattooed, not very secretly, and yeah, I just felt like it was right. This one was the first one I did, ironically, and it came out just as I hoped. I think I was a bit tired and run down when I did this one. It doesn't look quite as good because it's not on a sock blocker, but it's 2 rows too short on the length of the leg, so the chart goes into the stripe a little bit, but I almost think that's kind of on brand, and you know, it's a bit like, well, you tried and you rolled a 19 and then you just went and rolled like a 14, because it's still wearable and I'll still wear them as a pair, but Alex has almost claimed these and I do think they are his colours, so if he wears them, that's totally fine. There was a little bit of thinking to do in the construction, because I wanted the join where the stripes are to be hidden, so I just tried to make sure that I did the join of the socks on the opposite side, so that the little duplicate stitch, not embroidery, would not be interrupted. So I managed that and that worked out. And yeah, had a lot of fun, a real lot of fun doing these ones. And I did say one per character, but I felt like these weren't quite, neither of these are quite Ford through and through. Not like the Jester socks that I knit, which are just very Jester. So I had this other idea and I wanted to do it, and I did, and I have only done the one, and I think this project might take a little bit of a pause for a bit. I feel quite inspired by sort of garment, and maybe it's just autumn. I'll probably pick these up. Who am I to predict the future, right? But I just feel like I've got a bit inspired for garment knitting, so whilst I'll keep drawing these up, I'm going to take a little moment. Hopefully I'm not shouting or walking too fast. Someone please come and just pat me on the head. So these are Ukatoa socks, so again a nod to Ford. I'm not going to tell you about Ukatoa in case you're someone that's wanting to watch it and you haven't, but it's got eyes which were partially duplicate stitched. I've written Ukatoa in the yarn. By the red, I'd really got the hang of how I wanted it to look, and I don't know what I did. I think I moved the start of the round and it just made it that much better. I think I moved the start of the round like 2 stitches over, and it just meant that the A looks a lot nicer than the first 2, which is good to know. I'll remember that. I'll write some notes down for the second sock. And then it's got the waves. You know, he's a sailor, Captain Tusktooth. So yeah, again, this is quite a Ford colour palette, so I thought that it kind of worked well. Think about it. This is a very Ford colour, but the rest aren't again, so these are more his colouring. So I kind of ended up doing 2 pairs for him, even though one's kind of more Ukatoa and one's kind of more Jester in a way. But I'm really happy with them. They're so fun, they're so silly. They, you know, it'll be really fun to be able to have a pair of socks for every day of the week, and maybe one extra for every character of Critical Role. And like I said, Alex will be able to borrow all of these. He quite liked the texture of the colour work on the underfoot, so I will remember that for future. And yeah, same construction, wedge toe, short row heel, uses of stranded colourwork and duplicate stitching. Very simple, very fun. And I think that's it for Dungeons and Dragons knits. They were also knit using Drops Nord, which I believe has nylon in it, has wool in it, and has a bit of alpaca. It's really soft. I've knitted 1 pair of socks in this in the past and they've held up really nicely, so I just felt like for affordability of being able to see this project through and longevity, this was a sensible way to go, given my budget at the moment. Yeah, super fun project, a bit silly, but I needed something small and a bit silly alongside everything that's going on. I did cast on 2 pairs of socks, but one sock from 2 pairs. But again, they're going to probably be on hold for a while and there's not much to show, so I'm just gonna leave them. Yeah, I'm excited about these. I'm gonna hit pause already because I didn't realise I'd waffled for that long about what I'm wearing, how I am and that. I have to say, it does feel good talking about knitting and things, so thank you for keeping me company and doing this with me. I'll show you one that you've already seen. I'm going to show you another one of these bags, and I'm not sure that lovely Natalia knits these anymore, makes them anymore, but these are bags that I often take out with me or away. This one came away with me and I did fit 3 projects in it, which was perfect, to be honest. But they've got little pockets and things, and the way it hangs meant that you can keep knitting. But in here, it's next to me because I was doing a few rows while I checked that this setup was okay, is my Arachne jumper by Andy Sutherland, I believe. It'll be on the screen. And I've actually come a long way since I last shared this with you, and I'm so enjoying it. I know that currently I am just knitting stockinette in the round in a black yarn, but I have to say, still bringing me a lot of joy. So I am knitting the 2nd size, I believe. I ended up using 2 strands of yarn for the contrast colour. I am using, or was using, I finished it now, Natural Silk by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Company in the Jasmine colourway, I believe. And then it is just a cone of mohair that I had. Again, I'll put it on the screen, from, I think it was Yeoman Yarns. And then I am using this beautiful, I'm really impressed with it. I haven't seen it how it wears yet properly, but this is Evergreen from Hobby. It is an organic yarn, it's 100% wool, it's ridiculously soft, and I'm impressed at, well, it's quite fine, but there's a lot of loft to it, so I'm knitting it using, double check, I think it's 3.75, yeah. So I'm knitting it almost a DK gauge, and it's still knitting up lovely. And it looks particularly good with this colour work. Oh, What am I attached to? Oh, my little safety pins come undone. I like to put my cables with 2 bulb stitch markers on the end, because it generally, depending how tightly fitting the underarm is, I can actually squeeze it on over my head to try it on, which is what I did do, but I haven't done for a while. So I've done the body, and I did a lot of things differently without intending on. I think I got carried away with the colour work, and I only worked from 2 charts instead of 4. I ended up doing the full length of the chart instead of only doing a bit less because of the size I'm doing, but then I just omitted a few rows of a plain knitting that I was meant to do. Hopefully that's not going to affect it too much. It might make the fit a little bit more annoying in the shoulders, that's all I'm imagining, because it might be that the extra rounds of stockinette give you a little bit more stretch. I did do ladder back jacquard, which basically sets some purl stitches to the back of the work so you can have much longer floats that aren't quite a part of your knitting. It's the best way to describe it. A bit like double knitting, but not at all. And that is simply all you do, is you create a purl stitch that sits behind, and then this bit of fabric sits at the back, so you can have longer floats. And they're, you know, stretchy and not very visible. There's a couple of stitches at the bottom, actually none of these ones. There's 1, 2. There's 2 stitches that you can kind of see, I don't know, it might show up here, of where I closed it, that you can notice, but the rest of them are totally, so I'll just give that a little, I'm sure it'll be 5 minutes long. And then I didn't do any adjustments on the body, in that I just knit it straight. The pattern actually has waist shaping and it looks beautiful, but I don't know, I just liked the idea of having a slightly cropped, not very cropped, a slightly cropped fit with slightly more dramatic sleeves, so I'm going to knit them straight down without any shaping, which is what you can see here, and then I'm going to turn them into balloon sleeves. I don't know, I do it a lot, but I just really like it. I like the idea of having space for wearing t-shirts and things underneath, jumpers. This one, I mean, actually I think, considering how wide this is, it actually does a good job of hiding it. But I don't like it when it's all, you feel a bit ruched. So I'm hoping that that works and looks good. I have seen a version on Ravelry already that has bell sleeves, and I do really like it, so it should work. Yeah, I think that's it. I am, I can say, using 3.75mm needles. I went down to 3.5 to do the ribbing. Part of me wanted to do a tubular bind off for at the bottom, but actually I was watching Alex has watched most of the Spider-Man films, and I've watched the last 2 with him. So, and I was watching Spider-Man whilst knitting on this, which did bring me probably an invalid amount of joy. But I was so engrossed that I just kind of thought, you know what, it's fine. I'm just going to do it, and I'm quite happy with it. I forget how much I do like the way I bind off. I talk about it a lot, but when I'm doing ribbing and I'm binding off, I will do a stretchy bind off for the knit stitches and a standard bind off for the purl. So remaining in pattern, I will purl the stitch, slip the last stitch over, then I'll knit a stitch and then knit the 2 together through the back loop. And I find that it's not too flared, it's not too anything, it's just quite stretchy. So yeah, really enjoying this. This is bringing me so much joy, and I'm trying not to rush it. I'm trying to intersperse other projects with it to kind of keep it going, but I definitely do really want to have this done by October, which I think will happen. It might not happen, but I think it will. I just think it'll be really fun to wear this through spooky season and kind of, you know, wear it in then and then just wear it all the time, because it's a really cool piece, I think. So yeah, super happy with it, and I'm very excited to do some more knitting, and this should be a good project for doing editing with, actually, because I can just keep putting it down. The recent projects that I was knitting, is that good English? While I was editing, weren't so great for that, I don't think. And I'm really quite looking putting this out for you. By the time you see this, I'll have already done the editing, but I'm looking forward to putting things out there again. I'm not going to put this in the bag because I'm going to hopefully do a little bit more. I have a meeting at 6 today, and I think I'll be able to do a little bit of knitting in that too. So, hi, my name's Kat, and today I'd like to overshare with you. Again, please come and pat me on the head. Tell me it's going to be okay, because it is. I don't know. This one, because you have seen it before, but just not in the way that you might think you'll have seen it before. This is Alex's one. Alex's inside, not his personal insides, but the insides of this are dark, whereas mine are light, which is actually really dumb in a way. I should probably use this one more, because I am way more clumsy than Alex is generally. He is like, he can be mucky when he's doing the car and stuff, but I am just liable to chuck a whole pint of tea on myself. So yes, this is another one by Nat Knits Crafts, Natalia, who I'm not sure makes them anymore. But in here is some lovely Ulysses yarn that has been in here for quite some time. There is only 2 full balls. This colour, while I've got it, is Baleen Bleu, 240702. I don't know if that's the batch number, but it is a beautiful 100% wool, and the stark difference between this and the yarn in the next project I'm going to show you is wild, and a bit like having an espresso head to head. If I wasn't knitting between the two, I would probably have not been so aware of how different the yarns are. And I'll try and remember to do a macro shot for you so you can see the different fibres. I've not done that in a little while, and I kind of miss doing them, so I'm going to do my best to show you a close-up of it knitted and just in the ball, so you can get an idea of. But yeah, this is so dang soft, it's absolutely absurd. It's really springy and lofty, and again, this is something that I'm knitting at a slightly larger than recommended, which is unusual. So anyway, so back for Alex's birthday. Was it only this year or was it last year? Time is a very weird soup. But Alex started knitting the Ardmore Gansey, and I've nearly taken it off everything, but I felt like I should show you before I went and ripped it out. But he knitted the entire body, and he also did, I would say, maybe half of the cabling on the front, and it is beautiful. He's done a great job. Okay. Like a really great job, and unfortunately it just won't fit him, so he definitely needs a larger size. He did a big gauge swatch actually, like a big gauge swatch. I kind of made sure that we did a good size one to get a really good idea. So it's not actually his knitting, it's simply that he's been to the gym a bit more and he needs a bigger size, so I cast it on and I put it on a ridiculously small needle cable. Just, it was a lot easier to knit, and I have done the ribbing on the bottom and started the body. I did do a little swatch on here. I didn't block it. Terrible person, not advocating for that, but I did a swatch on the back of this. I did immediately, not immediately, but after a few days I ripped it out, so it's not on the back here. And what I've decided to do is I'm knitting him a size which is only 2 inches of positive ease larger than this one, than what his previous version was giving him, but I'm also knitting it at a slightly bigger gauge than what Alex was and that the pattern recommends. So I think where Kate Davies, it's a pattern by Kate Davies, uses 3.75mm needles, that's what I use for the ribbing, and I'm using a 4mm for the stockinette. And it is a bit of a looser fabric, but actually when I talked to Alex wants a proper Gansey in the future, and that I will knit using Aran weight yarn, and I'll do it really dense, proper Gansey yarn if I can. Frangipani is who I will go with. They do a black one, so I'd like to knit myself a nice black Gansey and knit Alex a colour of his choosing. But because this is a modern Gansey, because Alex wants this to be, you know, a little bit more wearable in our climate, I think a looser gauge will do him a bit better. So that's as far as I've got. I ran out of yarn without starting 2 new balls, so I'm going to start with these myself, and once I'm finished recording this, I'll maybe get a few photos of this for posterity, and I will probably put this back onto the skein winder and give it a little soak. Just, I think there'll be quite a lot of, yeah, kink in this, and that will just hopefully soften it back out for, you know, knitting it again. Hopefully give me a little bit nicer finish. So yeah, this is a lovely pattern actually. It again comes with quite a lot of shaping. There's quite a lot of instructions. I really like the way Kate Davies writes patterns, and I do think pattern writing styles differ so much. Whilst there's sort of universal languages in knitting, it's still not quite, you know, very universal. And I really like the way it's broken down into sections and it's just very clear. I have made sure I've written a note of what size and what needles I'm using in case time becomes a weird soup again. Alex actually printed this pattern off for himself, so I'm getting to work from a piece of paper, which is really nice. I haven't been doing that in quite a while, and our printer broke, and I'm reluctant to, you know, to do that. Go to the library as and when if I really need to, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I will do a bit more. What I'm trying to do is do a bit on this and then treat myself to knitting on the next project that I'll share with you for myself. In case this kind of didn't, I don't want these to keep making noise. So you start from the bottom and you knit to the underarm, you bind off stitches for the underarm, you knit the back with a little bit of shape at the front, sorry, with a little bit of shaping for both the neck and the shoulders, and then you pick up, work the back. I believe you do 3 needle bind off, and then you knit the sleeves in the round top down. Yeah, I really like this pattern. It is definitely a modern take on a modern Gansey. A modern take on a modern Gansey? A modern take on a Gansey, and it is meant to be quite fitted, but this would have been just too fitted for Alex, so yeah. I did hope that he would get to come and share that with me, but I thought I would just share it so that I can get knitting and not feel, you know, like I had to pause for too long in case I needed the yarn. But it's so soft. This yarn is so lovely. It's something that he spent a bit more than he normally would on. I think he bought it from Isolde's website, and back when she still did yarn. I don't think she does yarn anymore. But it's a really beautiful base if you can get your hands on it and are looking for something super soft but not super wash. I did think that this would happen today. I know this isn't going to be the longest episode, but I thought I wanted to talk. And this one is in another bag from Nat Knits Crafts, and this bag's super special to me. It has been to a lot of places with me. It's been to Perth and Norway, and it's been holding this yarn for quite some time. And at Christmas last year, I thought this was going to be a different project, but something about this jumper just called to me. So the yarn I am using is this. I don't know, I quite like that it's so loosely spun, and I do apologise, my hair is everywhere and it was clearly a lot darker at the time. But this is Ply Shropshire DK. This is a base that I've used before. I really like it, but in comparison to the Ulysses, wow, the Ulysses by Durerum Natura, this is a lot more toothy. I like it and it's next to skin soft for me, but in comparison, wow. Yes, this, I think it's Oswald's Tree. Yeah, so this is called Oswald's Tree. It is maybe a bit, I wouldn't say it's brighter, but there's like a pastelness to it that's not normally my thing. But this was super affordable. This was £5 a skein when I purchased it. Like wildly affordable if you ask me. I really liked the base and I think I will wear this. And if I don't, my intention was always to just do a light over dye over it. So just maybe a pine green or just a grey, just to neutralise it and bring it a bit deeper. And the pattern I'm using is my first Andrea Mowry pattern. I don't know. No, I just don't know. Just is. And it is Morning Rituals. And it is... This is the side seam, so I'll try and show you. Again, smaller cables than is perfect for podcasting, but there you go. So it's got cables, it's got pockets, and it's bottom up again. I quite like a bottom up construction. I'm not too too nervous about that kind of thing. I know that some knitters are, but it's super easy, especially if you've knitted quite a lot of the body and you can get a more accurate idea of your gauge. Remembering that if you're doing it that way, sometimes you end up knitting flat, so your gauge might adjust then. But all you're going to do is see what the pattern says that the depth is going to be and compare your gauge to the pattern gauge, and either adjust how far you knit up accordingly, or add or reduce the rows accordingly here. It's very easy. I'm probably making it sound more difficult, but it's fairly straightforward to get a good idea of fit. It's not the same as knitting it top down and being able to try it on in the same way as you go, but I quite like it. I like that you often get a seam at the shoulders. I just like that structurally, and I think this one has that. I did kind of go a bit ignoring the pattern in that Andrea recommends knitting the pockets first, and that's as much of the pocket as I did. But I figured this will be a nice sort of, again, this will be nice editing knitting to just keep me entertained. And I thought, well, yesterday and the day before, I've had this cast on a little while, but I just needed concentration knitting, something that required a little bit more of my brain to stop my brain stressing about things. You know, this is why we have different knitting projects for different moods, and this really helped with that. So yeah, I'm saving the pocket until I think I've got another inch or two to get the pockets done. I'm really enjoying it so far. I am using my metal needles. I was going to use wooden for some reason, and then I remembered how toothy this yarn was and was like, oh yeah, that's a bad idea. So I am using my higher sharps, which are still pretty much my favourite. I think maybe I prefer the ChiaoGoo needles for knitting socks. It might be the cable, just feels nicer, the red lace cable for socks. But for garment knitting, higher height sharps are mine. Yeah. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this so far. I'm enjoying it. The cables have been really intuitive. I think I actually did one repeat and then I haven't needed it again. So I might be doing it wrong. I don't think I am. So it's really easy to, you know, keep in your head, and very easy to sit and knit actually. I was able to have conversations and watch films, and it's my kitten again. She's so sweet. She was not interested in, she was just staring at me, so she's just sat by the door for no real reason. Yeah, I'm very excited to wear this too. This is, and I think partly because of it feeling like the weather's changing, I think this is just going to be such a nice winter knit. And maybe it's the image that Andrea used too, but the idea of standing outside wrapped up in this, one hand in your pocket and one hand in with a cup of coffee or tea, a good way to start the day. Yeah, my hair is knitted into everything. I know that most of you probably experience this too, but what? Anyway, yeah, really enjoying it. Initially I was a bit like, ooh, at the starkness of the difference the way Andrea seems to write patterns, but actually after doing a read through and then coming back to it, it's completely normal and I quite like it. There's some abbreviations that I was like, oh, like I think maybe for side seam and things that make sense, but I was just a bit like, oh, so it just felt weird is all I'm saying. I think it just was very different from other people initially, but then I realised it's just not, and there's loads of information in it. If you're a newer knitter, you could probably knit it. I mean, cables are fairly easy. People get nervous about cables. I say it a lot. It's nothing to get nervous of. You're just knitting things in the wrong order. I actually have been doing this without a cable needle. I previously much preferred knitting cables with a cable needle, even though I could do it without, but now, I don't know, something changed and I quite like, it is a little bit more smooth, I guess. You're not picking anything up or tucking it behind your ear and then worrying that you've lost it and then finding it 10 minutes later behind your ear. That's me. That's me. Let me get comfortable again. I think it looks better if I'm sat upright, like I'm sort of sat on my feet with my legs crossed rather than and yeah, I do actually, weirdly, I wrote my list with this pen today. This pen always makes me smile. I tend to use it on days where I do feel a little bit, and I do feel a little bit like that, so, but it makes sense because in here I have some lovely yarn from, I think it's called Painted Spring Farm? Painted Spring Farm, and it really is gorgeous yarn. So this is 80% alpaca, yeah, and 20% Donegal tweed. It is, it's lovely. It says approximate yardage is 150 yards for 3 ounces. So it's a worsted weight yarn. And this was really kindly sent to me by a viewer called Joyce, who sent it. I'm really emotional, I'm gonna try not to cry, from Rhinebeck. I'm just very emotional today. Last year, and I think last year I really wanted to do like a not at Rhinebeck celebration, which I would like to do again this year if timings are right. But the year before I did manage to do like a live video and a knit along. Not a knit along, but like a knit night. So hopefully I'll get to. I know that last year things went a bit awry and I couldn't, but I would like to. And I've been looking at this yarn for ages and trying to, I was like, it needs to be something right. It can't just be, it didn't feel like it could just be a hat. Because even though if I did a hat, both Alex and I would wear it a lot. Alex would definitely want this. But I've been toying with the idea of knitting a hood for a while. Again, lots of my coats don't really have hoods. This might be a gift. I kind of feel like it's too special in a way to give away, but also it's always really nice to be given something, to use it for joy, because the joy of knitting it, and then to be able to then pass it on. It's like a, you know, it just feels good. But I'm gonna knit this with the intention of keeping it for me and knitting another one for a dear friend who could probably do with it when the weather turns. So I'm knitting the Storm Hood by Albiona McLaughlin. LB Hand Knits was the previous handle that they used. I really like Albiona's patterns. They are beautiful. There's something always thoughtful about the construction and the shaping. Everything that I've knitted by them so far has, you know, fitted lovely and really had a lot of wear. Do I have my nose ring? And yeah, so this is, I want to tell you about everything and I can't tell you about everything in one go. So this is knit from the bottom up again. So it starts with like a ribbed section, and then you knit a hood that is knit flat and then joint and 3 needle bind off, I believe, something like that. It's a hood. But it comes with options. There's not just the option for a more flared bit of ribbing at the base so that it sits and can kind of, for me, I'm doing that so that it can maybe go under jumpers or over jumpers a bit easier and sort of hide and tuck away under cows if I really want that extra warmth. That's the intention. But it also comes with an option for how to attach it, like to add it as an option to jumpers, so creating a hoodie, which is also something that I think Alex might be into, so for the future. So I thought it was a really good pattern, like value wise it's wildly good. So yeah, I'm knitting that, and I haven't got very far. I was going to use wooden needles on this too. Just I felt like alpaca might want to be a bit sticky, and it might be that preemptively I'm planning it getting colder, but it's not going to get that cold for a while. I like to use wooden needles in the winter. I feel like they don't conduct the cold air so much, and they hold the warmth from my hands. They're a bit softer, but it's not going to get cold before I've finished this. So I felt like metal needles. I am using the recommended needle size. So far I've done some ribbing, so I can't tell you much other than this feels outrageous. I forget how soft alpaca is, and this is particularly soft. It really is. And I really like this slightly heathered. As well as the tweedy bits. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Thank you, Joyce, for taking us to Rhinebeck and bringing me and Alex joy. Both with knitting this and the yarn, but also the really joyful little pen that really I should use while I play D&D too, because I feel like my character in game would love this. She definitely would love this. But that is all the projects. Wow. So yeah, hopefully I'll feel better and things settle a bit, which might not be in the happiest way, but hopefully they settle. But I'll tell you a little bit about our trip, because we went to Slovenia, to Tolmin for Punk Rock Holiday, which is a festival, music festival, punk rock music. We booked it in September 2019, which is quite a long time ago now, and we waited for it to happen and it got postponed and things, and it was going to be the last one, but I think it was because they were building a motorway through the site, but it looks like they've moved it, so it's no longer going through the site, which is really good because quite frankly it was stunning. The site is beautiful, and the festival had like a nature reserve around it, was surrounded by mountains, and had the Soka river going through it. Absolutely amazing. We got super lucky with everything in terms of weather. When we were packing, it did say that it was going to be quite warm in the day, but drop down to like 12 degrees at night, which doesn't sound much, but then it was also raining. Like, it was forecast to just chuck it down for thunderstorms, and I thought, gosh, if you're out in the cold all day and you're soaking wet, 12 degrees is not going to feel nice. But it only ended up raining one day, and it was quite intense, and it was the last day of the music, and Alex and I still did go onto the river because it was nice first thing, and then it chucked it down, and we'd already got quite a way down the river, so I had to walk with our inflatable over our head. And the idea, well, not the idea, but most days of the festival, apart from the last day, we just got on an inflatable and just floated down the river. So it was kind of 2 miles, I think, from where we were camping to the beach stage on the inflatable. It was actually only like a 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk back to the camp. So it was probably only, it was less than a mile back to the camp. But if you go down the river, it winds and it's lovely. And the festival itself only had 2 stages, and the 2 stages were at separate times. So the beach stage was during the day, the main stage at night. So there was no clashing, so we could see everyone we wanted to, which made it amazing. We saw some amazing bands. I got to see Bouncing Souls, and I go on about them, but Flatliners, we saw the Descendants. Alex, it was one of the first bands on, and Alex just lost his mind. He was on stage before anyone could say anything. It's a wonderful festival in that there's no kind of barrier between visitors and musicians kind of thing, and they actually created a second platform with the intention of making stage diving and crowd surfing safer. Did get on stage a few times, didn't really crowd surf, was too nervous, and also it wasn't, not really because I'm scared of like doing it, it's I'm just terrified of hurting someone. But everyone was so excellent, it was just really wholesome. And yeah, it was just really nice. Oh yeah, when we watched Flogging Molly, so it was the only night that I went to bed before the very end of the band. I think I only missed like 10 minutes and then they finished, but I walked back. But someone out of like the main area. It was not intentional, so it's fine, but like clunked me, and not just hit me, but my entire plug, like my ear tunnel, shattered, and the pieces were around actually on the table. I kept them, like just shattered into like 8 pieces, and part of it went in my ear, which was not very nice. I had to like pull out a splinter, but it kind of knocked me, and I went a bit wobbly. I was like, that's it, I'm just gonna go to bed. But that was the only bit of any sort of thing that was negative about the entire festival, and that wasn't an intentional. It just felt weird because that bit of wood had been in my ear for 8 years and it just collapsed. And what else? Oh yeah, baby Gary, who's gonna take little zebra Gary. Gary was born on the Thursday. I had to finish another item that I'm going to share with you soon before sending him, so he's actually just about to get sent off to the real life baby Gary. He's not really called Gary, but he's still called Gary. But we ended up finding out on the Thursday, and the Thursday was probably the most fun day for music bands like the Interrupters and the Mad Caddies. It was the ska day. So we decided to all wear Hawaiian shirts, so I felt like we were quite approachable that day anyway. But we were back at the camp getting ready to go back to the main stage, and we sung Happy Birthday to baby Gary. But the people in the tent at campsite near us heard us singing and thought we were singing to someone that was there. So they came running over with a can of beer as a birthday gift, and we were like, well, thank you, but obviously we can't give that to little baby Gary. But we shared a beer and it was quite nice. So yeah, really wholesome festival, really lovely and good food. And I'd really like to go again, hopefully one day. I'm not sure if we'll get the opportunity, but really, really, really good. And also they had, like a waste deposit. So you got given 2 bin bags, one for recycling and one for not, on the way in, and they took a fee, and then if you filled it and cleared your site, you could claim the money back at the end, which I thought was actually really good in the end, because unlike a lot of the festivals I've been to in the UK, people are just a bit, it seemed more, they had a lot more respect there, and I think that was a really good incentive and a good way of doing it. But yeah, had a really lovely time. I'll try and put in a bit of footage. Other than hopefully being at Perth Yarn Festival, and I say hopefully only because at the moment things are a little bit up in the air, but we are booked in, we've got tickets. Alex and I should be there on the Saturday. I'm really excited. I'm actually really looking forward to being surrounded by yarn and yarny people, and our little project that myself and Mary Little makes, lovely Mary, and a few other people now have had input, and I'm very excited to share what they're working on, because that's the key. Like, that's why we're doing it, is to share what that will be discussed more openly very, very soon. And yeah, I hope it's good. I hope people like it. I really like it so far. I really like it. And yeah, I don't know, hopefully this weekend we will get out into nature a bit. Is it a bank holiday? If it is, Alex might, if he's better, he'll be probably going for a bike ride. I'm going to take myself out for a couple of walks if that's the case. I think I need it, assuming we're both all clear. And yeah, look after yourselves, check in with your loved ones, please, send them love, hug them if you can. Make things that really make you happy, whether that's silly little socks that have this silly little meaning that most people won't get, or the most beautiful garment you can think of, whether it's a pattern from someone else or something from your head. And if you ever do need help with stuff, I'm not an expert, I've knitted quite a bit, but do ask. I'm really happy to try and help and assist making things that are in people's heads become a reality. Yeah, I don't know, I love you, and I hope to see you again very soon. Don't forget to love each other.